Good evening and welcome to the Minions of the Zoo. I am your host, the Harry Channel, and with me tonight are Minions Serenity Star 13.
Hello!
DrFunctional.
What's that?
Oh my god. God, that's so old. Sora Luna.
Hello, good evening.
SkepTok.
Hi, everybody.
And Geodes.
Hello.
Hello. It's big energy Geodes tonight.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, before the show I made an entire pot of very strong English tea. So I've got all of my
some meth.
Yeah, I've got my little creamer thing and my little sugar thing, and I've got a whole pot of tea sitting in front of me, so it should be a lively show for me. Yeah, how's everybody doing today?
Very
I'm
good.
on cinnamon bun Oreos and lots of coffee. I'm excellent.
Cinnamon bun Oreos? What is a cinnamon bun Oreo?
It's glorious. It's an
sorta
Oreo
happening.
that's
It really is
flavored with
sorta
like
happening.
cinnamon. Yeah, and the cream filling is extra creamy. Oh
Wow.
Where did you find it?
Amazon actually.
I was gonna say I never see any like flavored Oreos here.
I get the surprisingly enough, Amazon's got some like wonderful little treats on there. That's well, it's Amazon, so it's like to your door. How could I say no? Sure, I'll get fat.
I like
Damn
your
lockdowns.
hotspot.
Well, let's see. Hello, Kiever Dam. We've got a few people in the chat already. Elowen.
Hello, Keeve again.
Let's see.
Hey,
who
thank you
else?
for sharing us out, Keeper Dam. You are the best. You are the most consistent sharer of anybody. Seriously.
You're the most dependable one here, including me.
Including me. I was just going to say, I at least retweet her.
Also, thanks, Assassin of the Grey as well. So
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, that's
Assassin of the
very
Grey.
Yep.
Terry's here. StreamYards is telling me that we have 0 people watching. I know that's not true.
It just hasn't gotten a report yet.
Well, it actually showed more before, but it's now gone to 0. Spudgun. Wow, that's good. Anyway,
Hello.
yeah, we've got a ton of show tonight. A lot to
That
talk
funny
about.
Elwyn person.
Oh, and of course, here's the thing that we're going to talk about, but not a whole lot because it's already been talked about. But everybody needs a chance to sort of vent, which is the topic of the Afghanistan collapse and analysis. We're going to go ahead and link this, or at least Geodes is going to link this, because he did a really good job. The Don't Walk, Run Productions. Of going through this stuff.
Yes, he did.
He did a great job, and I don't think we necessarily need to duplicate the effort, but I think some of us need to vent our spleens a little bit on this topic.
There
So
are
I've set
two
aside,
clowns in this picture.
15 minutes. So, Skep, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, essentially, the upshot of this video to me, the big reveal was that Biden did something with a purely political objective. And now he's like the little boy who got caught doing his homework, and he's saying, well, the dog ate my homework. Trump ate my homework. And he's just denying everything. One of the most telling things in the video is when Biden gives 3 different answers to the question of, did your advisors tell you to leave 2,500 troops? No, they didn't. I don't remember. And they were split. And he says it in the course of less than a minute and a half. This is not a guy, function. That's what the other thing that this really showed is how deeply Biden has declined cognitively. He's slurring his words. He's not reasoning well. You can see the slowness of thought. And if not for the fact that Kamala Harris has a fantasy that she can eke another year out of this asshole as president, so she can run twice after she Article 25s him, 2 years and 1 day into his administration. She, that's, the abuse the country is taking for purely political reasons at the hands of these creatures is epic in scope. It is colossal in magnitude,
and it's all on
it's
display.
heartbreaking. And this guy laid it out very well. I advise everybody. I suggest to everybody that if you have an interest in any of this stuff, this is a very good rundown of the failure after failure. You know what Trump did, what Trump negotiated with both the Taliban and the Afghan government, and how Biden basically just skull fucked that deal. Pardon the harsh language.
Yeah. I feel like I should change this so his eyes aren't closed. Let's see if I can find a better frame.
Come on, man.
Oh, God, now he made it worse. Okay.
He's also becoming increasingly quicker to anger when there's any sort of... It doesn't even have to be a challenge, just something he doesn't want to answer. He gets, like, he goes 0 to 60.
That's a sign of dementia. That's one of the
I've
many
heard
signs of
that. I've
dementia.
heard that. Yeah, I don't want to...
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm speaking
Although I
from
play one on YouTube.
Well, I'm speaking from a tiny bit of experience. Once again,
Mhm.
not medically diagnosed him, nothing like that. My grandmother was the same way, right before she deteriorated in about 6 months. If you questioned her on anything, it was automatically, how dare you? You have no right to question me. You have no idea what you're talking about. Why are you lying? It was that kind of stuff. And it was 0 to 60 in like a millisecond, usually. Mind you, she was a 96-pound woman and I could take her. But
He kind of looks like old Chungus in this picture.
Yeah, but that's... and
Teeth.
Minions of the Zoo does not state that he has it. It's just that is one of the supposed signs of dementia. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. We're saying in our layperson's opinion, this reminds us of our old grandmother who had dementia.
Yep.
Which is not to say that he has dementia. It's just to say that it reminds us of it.
We can make a political judgment, though, about what this is doing to our country and how badly we need leadership right now, and how there's just essentially a complete leadership vacuum. And Kamala Harris doesn't want any part of this. She's afraid some of this road tar is going to stick to her petticoats. And it might well. You know, the true believers on the left, on the Democratic Party, will, they'll support her no matter what. Just because it's like Nancy Pelosi talking to AOC about, listen, a glass of water can win in your district if it has a D next to its name, Alexandria. And that's kind of the way the Democratic Party is right now. But the most important follow-on to all this, they're re-electing Trump. Trump's going to run again, and he's going to run on this. He's going to say, look what the Democrats have done to this country, and look how irresponsibly they behaved. Well, and they could get a ground. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to, give a little bit of background for people who may not fully know a lot of stuff. So the agreement that Trump did was called the DOHA agreement, DOHA. That stated that we would have troops out May 1st, correct? I'll make sure I have my stuff right. So I'm assuming it's May 1st.
Yep.
When that did not happen, because the generals kept moving shit around before that and everything, the Taliban basically said, you didn't hold to the agreement, we're not going to hold to the agreement. No one, at least nothing I have found, has stated that anybody tried to renegotiate, that no one tried to find a longer deadline, anything. This was going to happen as of 11:59 p.m. on the end of April, because they fucked it up, but because it just went sideways. So this whole thing could have been avoided had he... Now, we don't really know for sure if the Taliban would have held to their agreement. We're going basically on the idea that they would have. If they would have held to their agreement, none of this would have happened. There wouldn't be people having to be helicoptered off the top of buildings like it was during Vietnam. None of this. And the Taliban, for the most part, up till May 1st, showed that they were going to keep it if we held to our side. And this is basically when it went belly up. And was it Biden's side that said that they were had changed the agreement to September 11th or something like that, which was that was just like, that's a bad optic.
Unilateral change does not constitute changing an agreement. An agreement,
Oh yeah,
to be
I
changed,
agree.
requires both parties to the agreement to agree to the change.
Oh yeah,
Funny
no,
how that works.
that's what I mean. Like no one in Biden's administration tried to reach out to the Taliban saying, "Hey, we just elected a new president. Can you give us 2 months?" And the Taliban still could have said no, and then the onus would be a little bit more on the Taliban in contractual agreement sense. But since no one went, I saw pictures, Spud Gun. So sorry, I'm going off that. But anyway,
He's like a dementia-ridden Vader. Pray I don't change the agreement. What?
yeah.
What was I saying?
And that was kind of the thing. So this was all going to go bad as of May 1st.
Kind of makes Trudeau
let me,
not seem all that bad,
refocus.
guys.
I know. Let me refocus your ire for a moment to this guy. Secretary of State Antony Blinken needs to resign, according to New York Post. Of course, I'm sure they felt that way before.
Oh, yeah.
This guy... Now, I fully expect Biden to be kind of an empty suit with experts behind him.
Yeah.
And so I've accepted the empty suit part of it. I know I shouldn't. I've got low standards, but I've accepted it. The problem is
reality,
that the people giving him advice are completely full of crap. This brain trust here, this fine, I think he was another one of those Rhodes Scholar types. If in this analogy, Biden is Obama, this is our Hillary Clinton of the day. And this is our Secretary of State who said categorically that everything was going to be fine. Biden, I think, believed what this guy said and thought that they weren't going to just overrun the country. You know, come on, man, we've got 300,000 troops with good training and all this sort of stuff. Come on, man, the Taliban's not going to just roll in there. We're not going to be helicoptering people off the roofs. Well, that's exactly what happened. If you want to be 100% wrong about something, Biden listening to this guy, that's what you've got. 100% wrong. The big problem is that the apparatus behind the president is broken. I just don't really know another way to say this. And some of the statements was it the Joint Chief of Staff about how saying that we don't have a capability to rescue Americans outside of the airport. Come on, man. Why on earth did we end up getting rid of our military airbase and instead rely on something with an indefensible perimeter in Kabul to do our air operations? That makes no sense to me. There's a lot of this that makes no sense to me. On the one hand, I feel like there's a lot of comments I could make, but I also feel grossly unqualified to make them. But I think I might be more qualified than this guy.
Well, he worked on, during the Clinton administration, Mr. Blinken served as a member of the National Security Council staff. So he worked for the Clinton administration, and then he also spent 4 years as President Clinton's chief foreign policy speechwriter. And that's about, yeah.
Skep, do you know anything about this nitwit?
European affairs.
Yeah. Blinken's pretty typical, swamp creature. Intellectual, never really has done any honest work. The thing that most of these guys have in common is they go straight through school. They do very well in school. They go to some honorary honorarium type of school, like a Rhodes Scholarship or some advanced fellowship to study someplace. Then they come back, go to law school. They clerk for, some, important judge, so that they're very well schooled into a certain mindset, a certain way of thinking, and they've only been fed carefully filtered things about the outside world. They're essentially deeply conformist, very, very normative, almost slavishly devoted to a particular narrative, and they sculpt the facts that the world presents them with to fit that narrative, in their own personal input, how they view the world, and the output that they generate. Blinken is no different. He's a bright guy who was captured into this system, and now he's, basically like one of Pavlov's dogs. He's just, full of conditioned responses. He doesn't really think much for himself. He knows what the right thing to do is. He knows what's expected of him, and he performs.
Do you think he, in his own mind, thinks he's Jack Ryan?
No. I actually think he thinks he's Hubert Humphrey.
Yeah. I can see that just from reading his background. I can see that. Because, yeah. It's got, oh boy.
Sorry, in trying to hand that back to Skep, I stomped on you, Serenity. Did you have more that you wanted to add about this?
No,
guy?
it's just I'm going to put his, because this is from state.gov, his biography, so this isn't Wikipedia. So I'm going to put this so everybody can read it. But yeah, he reads like Skep described him. It was law school, it was Harvard Law School, and then Harvard College, and then Columbia Law School. Ironically, he was a founder of a international strategic consulting firm focused on geopolitics and national security.
Yeah. Serenity. Those are called cash pumps.
Oh yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, just so you know,
Oh yeah, no, I got you.
consulting devices that exist to funnel money
Yep.
from PAL 1 to PAL 2.
Oh yeah, no, I just
That's all
thought it was funny.
That's all
Yeah.
those are.
Yeah, and
That strikes
sometimes
me
you
as-
use them to keep people on ice in between administrations. It's like,
Yeah.
you get your turn
They
back.
call
Right
them-
now,
they
you're
call
just
them
keeping the
landing
bench warm.
spots.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see that.
I call it Alexandria.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry,
Georgetown.
it's functional. What were you going to say?
I was just about to say, he strikes me as the type of person that behind closed doors, he's more like Dr. Frankenfurter, honey.
yes. Except I
Nice
have more respect
mask.
for Frankenfurter.
All right, so we have. I mean, this is a giant Charlie Foxtrot of epic proportion. Yeah. So
And not just for them, for other countries too.
I mean,
Because
India
a
was,
lot of Canadian troops were playing not so much a militaristic role, but a policing role.
yeah.
And they were, on every other street corner, keeping the peace, making sure people aren't acting a fool and not really getting too involved in things other than, hey, if somebody's, chasing somebody or, whatever, they're just, trying to keep the peace and chill people out. I know that also what did you just say, Serenity?
India was begging
Indians?
for us not to leave. Well, not begging. They were very nicely in a roundabout way asking us not to leave.
There was also another country, a smaller country, that was also playing peacekeeper roles. It might have been France or something. But I mean, so many NATO nations were involved here, and they all got fucked by the United States administration from their massive, massive fuck up.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's
We didn't
trying to
even-
play damage control.
We didn't even tell our allies that we were leaving Bagram
Yep.
Air Force Base. It was just in the middle of the night. Okay, done.
Shutting off the electricity to pimp them even further.
Even their own U.S. contractors woke up that next morning going, "Wait, what? What's going on?"
Well, that's
Where is
okay.
everybody?"
Here's my dumb question, and this is the part I genuinely don't understand. If you know that a drawdown is happening and that people are planning on leaving, I mean, suppose it was September 11th. Why are there so many people who are not active military and combat roles still in this country? Where did all these American civilians come from? Shouldn't that stuff have been wound down a while ago? I figured you could, because I'm not doing an act here. I'm genuinely confused as to why a lot of these people haven't headed home already a long time ago.
Understood. Have you ever heard the term referred to in the Army as camp followers?
Yeah.
No, not just the horse.
Yeah.
Serenity.
I know, but that's where my brain went. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I know.
no.
But
We know
but-
all of the people who service the soldiers' needs. Yes, the ones who run the Pizza Hut and other things.
No, just bear with me for a minute because that's not the end of the story. So here's what happens: you have people who are essentially of an entrepreneurial frame of mind, and they say, "I can make some money helping provide services. Maybe I speak Pashto or Arabic or whatever, and I can be an intermediary for local services and help my country, help the army and all this
Doing
stuff.
some good while doing work.
Exactly. So they go over there and they inhabit the place. And being of an entrepreneurial mindset, they find other opportunities there. Okay. They find there are lots of services that need to be provided. And they have the skills and ability, organizational ability, and most importantly, the capital to go in and set up to do that. And it becomes very positively remunerative to them. They make a lot of money doing this. So then they hire more people to make their organization even bigger. And you have lots and lots of these small to middle-sized providers surrounding, what was at one time 110,000 military people. That's a lot of people who need a lot of things provided for them. They have to have people who work in the commissary, in the PX, in the other services on base. They have to have people to pump the gas. They have to have people who can be translators. I mean, it really does amount to a ton of people. So you get this, and a lot of these people are Americans who have come over to do this. And suddenly, the American military is gone. And the Americans over there are in a hostile territory. People who don't care anything about them, but will kill them if they violate their 7th century morality. That's a situation that is rife with potential for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of Americans are going to get killed as a result of Biden's failure to be able to act as an executive to plan the drawdown in a way that made sense, to ensure that his people were planning the drawdown in a way that made sense. There are people over there who could have done the job, but they were given this arbitrary political date. It's purely political. And Biden, in his senile, stupid fantasy world, we'll do it by September 11th. That'd be good. That was probably Hunter's idea in some coked up moment. That's what it sounds like. It's so silly. And as a result of this irresponsibility and this complete kowtowing to the political expediency of the moment, Americans are going to die. Americans may have already died in this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a relative by marriage who, I'm not going to say very much about this. He's an officer in the Army, and he died the other day suddenly. Hale and hearty, run marathon, blah, 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 blah. He died of a heart attack Monday. We're trying to find out what the fuck is going on. And there's going to be more about this.
Yeah.
Sadly, yes.
Biden made a big deal about, because of course he is a political animal. He was talking about, we looked at every contingency. You looked at every contingency except for the one where the Afghan army and the Afghan police and the Afghan leaders fold like a cheap house of cards, and you are suddenly, instead of doing a withdrawal from territory that's safe, doing a withdrawal where you could be under fire at any moment and you're surrounded by hostiles.
Yep.
That's a totally different plan. Because it went from, we're done, we're going home after a peace agreement, to the Dunkirk evacuation, except there's no beach. I mean, this is not good. They could have, if they had planned for this eventuality, it would be different.
There's no English fleet either.
There's no English fleet. All there is an airport that they don't really control in any meaningful way.
Right.
And mostly surrounded by hostile countries as well. So it's not like
but
if you run...
The guidance we put out to Americans is don't approach the airport. Don't approach the airport.
Well, that's a nice catch-22.
Yes. You'd have to be crazy to be in the army.
Yeah. Well, I guess some Americans, one thing that does separate the American military from other militaries is the fact that initiative is a thing that's valued. I mean, obviously done right. Initiative done incorrectly gets you in big trouble. But initiative is a thing that's actually part of the American military ethos.
Yes,
And
it is.
other
It's
militaries do
emphasized.
not allow for it.
Right. Well,
I guess
to
some
an extent,
people-
to an extent, the British Navy does.
Well, some Americans showed initiative and went out there with some big-ass helicopters and pulled, 160 people out from outside the airport?
Right.
I have a feeling they weren't supposed to do that. I think they decided they didn't care.
If rumors are true, that they were actually given explicit orders not to.
Well, yeah.
But that's
Controlled airspace and all that.
yeah. Well, it's one of those things that
You don't
rumors
tend to
right
get
now.
orders not to do stuff.
They
Yeah.
were
When-
strongly
when-
advised to not to
Oh, by
do
who?
something
By who?
else.
Who
It's
was,
a rumor.
Who
Skep.
was the specific officer who advised them?
That's
Before you say
well, we
that.
don't know who said to do that. This is just
Okay.
the story that we're trying to relay. We don't know who did
Okay,
that.
we
It may
have a
just be part of their
feeling
rules
it
of
may have-
engagement.
We have a feeling it may have gone down that way. Is that what you're saying, Serenity?
Oh, we've lost her for a moment. Okay.
Okay.
So the point being that initiative is good. We like initiative. And it's good that Americans did something useful. Unlike other leaders, I guess the Spanish were having a hell of a time getting a hold of anybody to talk to about negotiating to get their people out. So some guy with a Pepe icon actually sent a tweet to the Taliban and was able
There's
to
actually a
sort of
story within a story here, in
yeah.
my opinion. And essentially what this guy did is, the guy with the Pepe frog, he contacts the Taliban's Twitter and basically says, look, America forced us to be there. We didn't want to be there. Please treat our people with respect. And the Taliban comes back this account that we think of as the Taliban, as the United Taliban. The Taliban Congress got together and drafted this statement and gave it to the Twitter guy, right? But that's not the way that happened. This was just some guy saying, hey, we respect the foreign forces and we don't want to hurt anybody. We won't hurt you unless you violate Sharia. And that's all that really happened here. And what it shows is how, the Taliban is only vaguely organized. It's essentially, it's not near as centralized as everybody thinks. It's probably factional as hell.
Yep.
Probably relates back to the warlords from whom these assholes come from. Anybody who knows anything about Afghanistan knows how regionally torn apart it is. Afghanistan is not one unified whole. It's never been a particularly great at being one country. It's been better at being little principalities, kind of like, say, 16th century Germany or 16th century Italy, with lots and lots of, duchies and good-sized estates, controlled by what amount to being warlords.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, there's no real cohesion between these guys. So the fact that these guys got back a tweet from the Taliban, supposedly, just means that that's one guy from one faction who had access to that account who typed the return back. I don't think it's that meaningful, actually.
Well, that's why it's only got 5 minutes in the schedule.
Sorry
we'll
about
see
that.
We'll see how it plays out. If it has any effect, if it does, it actually makes a good case for some of the benefits of social media and being interconnected like this on a global scale. That if that does save, these people, or at least avert some violence or whatever, then yeah, it did some good for once. Twitter actually did some good, like it did back in the Arab Spring to sort of communicate the refusal of the Sharia state. It's at some level. Obviously, it wasn't wholly effective, but there was some levels of communication that really speaks to these are powerful tools. We don't use them as well as we should as humans. Sorry to get all hippity dippity.
You didn't talk about the singularity, so it's okay.
Well, the singularity needs to be mentioned.
No, it absolutely does not need to be mentioned.
Oh, how fast I would be banned off of that.
But continuing along the lines of excellent governance, we've got this story. Environmentalists irked. Oh, shut up. Leave me alone. Okay, environmentalists irked after Interior resumes oil and gas leasing under court order. Yeah, it's as if there's a real thirst for energy in this country and people are kind of pissed off about $5 gas. But the environmentalists don't want us to have cheaper gas. This is Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, who I know is everybody's favorite. She's Interior
hot.
Department.
She's hot. You got to admit.
She's super hot. The Interior Department announced Monday that it would resume new oil and gas leasing on public lands to comply with a federal court order, but environmentalists weren't happy about it. Yeah. The Biden administration came into all this with a plan to make energy more expensive so that you would feel better about buying $50,000 electric cars. Because nobody wants a 50. Yeah, this is part of Build Back Better. Nobody wants a $50,000 electric car when it's when gas is $2.50 a gallon. It's a really tough sell. But it starts to look a lot more attractive when every time you go to the gas station, you're paying $100.
It's amazing how... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, it's amazing how when an administration or some sort of force tries to artificially transition from one technology to another, how just disastrous it is for everybody, except for, a select few who are probably making money off of this somehow. But when it's natural, when there's a natural progression from one technology to the next, it seems to just be without problem and just more freeing and cheaper and more environmentally friendly just by leaving it alone. And what's this thing we keep talking about? Skep starts with an M. Free mothers, free. Yeah. Tomatoes, free markets.
Free mothers.
Free markets.
Is going to be,
that's what it is.
I thought I said the OnlyFans replacement.
We're not there yet, Sora.
Sorry.
Okay.
Because when you see this happening, like telephone to internet to modern day, handheld communications, like these transitions are so smooth and so seamless and only benefit everybody involved. Everybody's making money. Everybody's better connected.
Here's U.S. crude oil production for the last 3 years. Now, you might notice something happened last year around March 20th when things locked down. Demand went down, and of course production as well, because their people weren't pumping as much oil. And as we started getting back to something resembling normal, here's the point where Biden comes back into office, and then suddenly you see...
What the hell?
You see oil production just kind of crater. It goes from 300. It goes from, let's see, what was about 342,000 down to 273 million barrels in February. Now it has popped back a little bit, but overall the trend is, even for somebody considering that we've supposedly gotten back to something resembling normal, this is kind of terrible. World oil production is not that much better. In fact, let's see. Here's the same period of time, 3 years, world oil production.
Oh, wow.
It cratered. Now, pay attention to the thing.
Pay attention to the scale, guys.
Yeah, exactly. We were at 82 million, and it dropped all the way down to 71 million. Now, that is a fairly large amount, starting with the pandemic, and it has actually gone back up. But worldwide, the amount of oil that's being produced is a lot lower. Now, I linked an article for you guys to look at. Just recently, the Biden administration asked the Saudis if they wouldn't mind pumping more oil. Because I guess which piece of ground it comes out of makes a difference to the environment in terms of global climate change. Because I think that the administration has realized they have overplayed their hand a bit, and they've gone from motivating people to get electric cars to really threatening inflation a lot more than they really should. Now, there are some aspects to this, which, I mean, oil prices are really tricky to talk about. This is a thing that people do for a living, and if they can do that one thing, they pretty much have a career for life. We're just dabbling right here. The situation with oil is bad, but a lot of it's sort of artificial. If the Saudis wanted to, they could pump more oil, and we could pump more oil too. I don't know how much of this...
The Russians and Canucks, yeah.
Well, yeah, from what I've been able to determine, a lot of these oil companies have permits to drill just sitting in their back pocket. They basically stored up a bunch of these knowing that there weren't going to be enough of them available once Biden got in. And now the court is forcing them to issue more of them. So I don't know what the hell's going to happen with oil prices. I don't think anybody does. If I did, I would be making money off of oil futures instead of running a podcast.
May I suggest a couple of thoughts here?
Please.
Okay. The decision to re-allow drilling is going to be appealed by the Biden administration. And they're going to have to appeal to a 3-judge panel that was appointed by Trump. These are 3 very conservative judges who constitute the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. They're probably going to uphold this. There's not a fault in law. The basis of their appeal is essentially, the administration wants to do something else. That's essentially what they are, taking to the court. And we're crossed because we've been hoisted by our own petard here. And, we don't like the way that this is going. And, as always, it's a blame Trump festival. So that will probably be denied. Very doubtful that the Supreme Court will pick this case up, because that will be the next appeal that they have. And as a result, they're gonna be stuck with having to allow permits, at least for a while, until the Biden administration can come up with another strategy to curtail the permits. In the meantime, as you say, they've got permits in their back pocket. They can do both exploratory drilling, which is the wildcatting thing. That's where you get the 100-to-1 payoff when you hit, but you only hit 1% of the time, basically. But what they also can do, that they don't need a permit for, is something called developmental drilling. Developmental drilling is generally done by issuing limited partnerships to rich people who want to shelter income. You essentially shelter 100% of your income that you invest in these things. And I'm not going to give a lecture on tax shelters because you'd all go to sleep. But the upshot of this is you can raise a hell of a lot of money very quickly to do that. And development drilling is always really, really well funded. And so they'll be content to enlarge existing wells with the wildcat exploration. They've got plenty of permits for the foreseeable future. So essentially what I'm saying is, in the long term, I don't expect a big change as a result of this in terms of the availability of crude out of the United States. I just don't think it's going to change very much.
Yeah, he's just making it more difficult for us, which is going to raise prices, but maybe not fundamentally.
In the long term, it will. Yeah,
I think a lot of the volatility in prices, the high prices we're seeing, are really because of futures. Because I can't help but think, even though production is down significantly, that demand is probably still trailing.
Harry, why do futures go up? The futures go up because it's to protect the producers, right?
Mhm.
And so they lock in their prices now, and betting on they go long essentially, and they're betting on an increase in price, and the producers want to lock in a good enough price, so they essentially lock in and agree to sell price, okay, regardless of what the future price might be. So somebody who's on the wrong side of that deal has to sell at a price that he may be far less money than what he has to buy that crude oil to fulfill that contract. Commodities are deliverable contract, okay? You literally buy X number of barrels of oil, and the attraction of the commodities market is that it's highly marginable. You can margin it 10, even 100 to 1, and but you get market calls, and the market can whipsaw you, and that's what it does with most of the speculators. It shakes them out very quickly, takes their money, and leaves. And but the guys who play this for delivery, the producers and the big consumers of oil, it's all about cagely locking in a price, a protected price, so that they can plan their businesses. And that's why the commodity markets exist, is to make that an orderly market, because it used to be a very disorderly market. You simply did not know what the price of oil was day to day. It actually started with the whale oil markets, and they were traded on the curb. They called it the curb market back in the late 1700s, early 1800s in New York City, and that's where the commodities markets came from. Anyway, more information than you wanted to know, but there you go.
Well,
No, it was
actually,
really
I
informative.
saw a really great video on the history of the kerosene lamp, but we're not going to go there either. Okay, so actually, it's really interesting about what they used to burn before whale oil and after. I mean, if
Dung?
you're me, it's interesting. Yes, dung.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, so speaking of that, let's just cast that aside. This made me angry. Stephen Colbert compares the Taliban to Americans in Capitol Riot. These guys
This
are just
asshat.
really wed to this narrative, aren't they?
He's so dumb.
I
know. Maybe okay. He's not dumb. He's just an asshole. He's
Well,
one
that's
of
what
these
I was go- that's what I
asshole
was thinking is-
entertainers who people used to like and listen to because he built up a career where he was a comedian, but people trusted him, and now he's just completely shitting all over the trust people once had. And that's me personally, because I used to find him hilarious. He used to be a really good segment on Jon Stewart's show, and he's been slowly transitioning to this just Democrat shill, and he's gone full force since 2016, 17. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's like the thing I was thinking about with this, and I've noticed this for a while too. When they really started the anti-Trump narrative, and especially with I'm specifically talking about like talk shows. At the time, I think it was Jimmy Fallon. There's the British dude over on the other show. I can't think of his name.
John Oliver, I think, is what it is.
Well, John Oliver actually started.
Oh, you mean
James
Trevor
Corbyn.
Noah?
James Corbyn, yeah.
James
I think,
Corbyn, okay.
yeah. You had Jimmy Fallon, you had all these people. Yeah, and Stephen Colbert is one of the first people I noticed to jump on the bandwagon before all the others. And I think the others, I think they were told to go along with it, and they probably were willing to, although,
Yes.
I think they had to be instructed. I am of the opinion Stephen jumped on it before he even got the instructions to, along with John Oliver.
Yes, I would agree with you with those two, but I think the sort of grandfather of this whole these whole narratives and jumping into full propaganda mode came from Bill Maher.
Yeah,
because I know I watch that show religiously even now just to see, okay, what are they lying about now? But you saw it the minute Trump put his name in the hat, that started with Maher.
Yeah.
And the lies, and the lies obfuscated through jokes, and oh, it's just a joke. But no, seriously, it's so awful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I
Yeah.
still remember when John Oliver on his show begged Trump to run because he thought it would be funny because he thought he would
A
lose
lolcow.
spectacularly,
Yeah.
and it didn't happen.
And
Now
what
they're
do you
fighting
think?
all that.
Their heads are going to explode, Serenity. If Trump wins again, their
Oh.
heads are going to explode. No, implode.
Wait till the next article. Because I know the next article
I
coming.
was trying to lead into the next one. You know, just how I do.
Sorry, it's it's amazing.
It is.
Especially when you get. Sorry, I'm
Because-
jumping ahead,
because-
Harry. I apologize.
No,
Yeah,
well, I might
well,
as
I'll
well
stop
just
too.
change the here. Look,
Yep.
Because people who
come on,
aren't
load.
comedians
no, here
by
load.
trade, more
Here we go.
serious political commentators, you know, quote unquote, more serious, are killing it in late night.
Mm-hmm.
And Gutfeld's a former Maxim. If you're old enough to remember what Maxim is, editor.
and Men's Fitness.
Yep.
So Gutfeld, for anybody who doesn't know, is a libertarian guy who is a pretty decent writer. I mean, he's a smart enough dude. He's not a mega brain, nothing like that, but he is. He's a decent libertarian guy, kind of small
Got
L
some jokes,
libertarian.
some snark.
Yeah,
His
and
snark's
he's
really good.
he's more than happy to make jokes at his own expense.
Oh, yeah.
He hams it up pretty well. He enjoys not landing a joke just as much as he enjoys landing it.
I love
Oh,
it
yeah.
when he intentionally does that. Yeah,
Yeah,
he tries
I think
to tell a
it's
bad joke.
Yeah, he doesn't mind. He's kind of he's pretty brave when it comes to his comedy and stuff, and he's carved out a little bit of a niche for himself late at night with sort of the format of what was it, the Greg Gutfeld show on the weekends, and now Gutfeld ! Other nights of the week.
Yeah, and
So it's
this is on
usually
the heels
him-
of Carlson just exploding on the ratings.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, the Gutfeld show costs almost nothing to make.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like a
is-
YouTube show, basically.
It's yeah. I mean, it's nothing. It costs Fox literally a few salaries. Gutfeld is working a bunch of different jobs. He's on the 5. He's on, commenting on a bunch of other things. He's running these 2 shows. I'm sure he's well compensated. Cat Timpf, last I checked, was pulling in like around $500,000. Even with all those salaries put together, it's nothing compared to the amount of money that CBS is putting into making that show with Stephen Colbert.
Well, and that's the thing.
It's the Ed Sullivan Theater, right? So they're producing that show in the Ed Sullivan Theater, that historic, huge space. They're dealing with the audience, all of the production, Stephen Colbert's enormous salary, all of the salaries of the huge staff that work for him. And Gutfeld, with a handful of writers and 4 people sitting in chairs, is kicking his ass.
He's pulling in about Fox is paying him about $7 million a year, and
Well,
that's
the thing-
just Fox.
And the thing is that makes it funnier is the fact that
He's 5'4".
beyond that,
Sorry,
but
I had to try to make a Gutfeld type joke.
when you look how cable is broken down, like cable packages,
Mhm.
like it should be nothing for Colbert to beat Gutfeld. It is an uphill battle for Carlson or Gutfeld to beat people on basic, like, don't need to pay for it if you have an HD antenna and live close enough to an area you can get the stuff with Colbert and Oliver and Fallon and all of them. It should be nothing for them to get to pass Gutfeld and Carlson, and they can't. That's the thing that I don't think some people, if they don't know how ratings break down, don't understand how big of a deal this is and how much the overlords at Colbert's job are probably looking at him going, what the hell? They should not be able to beat us, period, let alone by over 200,000.
And
What are you doing, and fix it?
What's most important is that he's capturing that key 25
Yep.
to 35 demographic
Mm-hmm.
that
There's a lot
people
of
like
people-
Colbert, Gutfeld, and whatever, they all chomping at the bit to get that demographic because they are one of the biggest consumers.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
it's actually funny you say that. I just
Political.
linked an article in private chat, Harry, if you want to briefly bring up, and not to sidetrack too much from kind of where we're going with this, but
No, it's fine.
I just
Red Day knows. Okay.
yeah, this was one of the things that Stephen Colbert I noticed has been trying to do, and this is partially why I think this is funny that he's getting less views, is because he's been trying to appeal to a certain demographic by like tapping into the D&D stuff as well, and it's just
Isn't Red Nose Day a British charity?
Yep.
Yeah.
You'll have a lot of American, especially the like basic channel personalities try to tap into it too when Red Nose Day happens.
Yep. But yeah, no, it's just one of those things that like I was reminded of this actually, and I was like the thing that I always find really funny with this is just it's like, yeah, I've seen him try to kind of cater to the nerd crowd quite a bit, and I don't necessarily think that he doesn't play D&D, but it is one of those things where it's just kind of like we know what's going on.
he is pretty well entrenched into that sort of nerd sphere. He loves, comic books. He read a lot when he was younger and all this and stuff. I've known since his early days at the Daily Show. So he's really, I mean, even on his set, he's got a big full metal replica of Captain America shield. Okay. He's been really well into that. I don't know if he plays D&D, but I mean, he does. I'll give him this, that he does do a lot of philanthropy. He does attach his fame to raise funds for charities, which is something, regardless of what they do otherwise, is a very noble cause. And I can't call him a total bad person because he does stuff like this.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying I think that he is using that to also help build up his base in terms of his viewership too. So
yeah, it's a two-way street for sure.
You know who else is really into this sort of nerd culture? Stephanie Abrams.
There we go.
The Abramopotamus.
Oh,
there you go.
Before
I
we move
actually
on,
have a comment. Go ahead.
Landmass.
Sora's got a
I have a request.
Yes.
Hi, Pete. Good evening. Hope you're well. Go on.
Hi, Pete.
Ooh.
We miss you, Pete.
I definitely need to. Never mind. Put a stream.
Moving on.
We can raise some money for charity, if nothing else. Okay, so I think what's going on with Stephen Colbert is a lot simpler than all this. I don't think he's an idiot.
No,
I do think that he's being highly partisan, and I think it's warping his sense of reality in a very bad sort of way.
Oh man,
I think he is fully immersed in the liberal performer New York City bubble at this point. I think the reality distortion field is hitting him so hard that he doesn't know up from down anymore. And he wants to be liked by all the right people. He is his nose is really far up some famous people's asses. I'm sure he's very sad that he didn't get to go to Obama's birthday.
Oh, he's almost fully black-faced at this point.
Well, the really funny thing is watching him have a panic attack when Jim Stewart went on the roll about the China virus and it being made in the lab. That entire segment, you're just watching Colbert freak out behind his eyes to the point that on a show with a live studio audience, he looks at the camera and goes, "Wherever they decide to cut this,"
I think
and thought they would cut it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Jon Stewart is royalty to those people.
Oh yeah,
and so
they're not.
I think if anybody other than Jon Stewart had made that comment, they might have just suddenly had the satellite fail or whatever as they've done before. But
this is just by security live on camera.
Yeah.
Well, this is just delicious. The fact that that Gutfeld is doing really well because
we need
all
you
of those
back,
years,
John.
all those years of cringy jokes and self-effacing humor are finally starting to pay off for the guy, and
it will
good
continue.
For him. Yes. All right. So this is actually all three of these articles. The last one, this one, The next one are all falling under the theme of "Dude, you're better than this." So the next
Here we
"Dude,
go.
you're better than this" is the ACLU has decided that a bill against rioting and looting is racist and anti-BLM. Okay. The ACLU and activists are slamming a North Carolina anti-rioting bill that would increase penalties for rioting or looting as racist and anti-Black Lives Matter. It's an
What
anti-Black
are you
Lives
trying to
Matter
say,
bill.
Dawn?
Attorney, Dawn, of the activist group Emancipate North Carolina, blah, blah, blah. Sponsored
Why
by
are you-
Republicans in North Carolina. Go ahead.
What and like, why is he seeing race into this? There's no race into looting. Anyone can loot.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing it properly, no, never mind.
Yeah,
What
don't-
are you
don't-
alluding to, Sora?
Oh,
Civilized
God.
society is so racist.
Kick him, kick him, kick him, kick him.
So, Serenity,
No.
since you're my fact checker, how much money did we end up losing in terms of damages and the riots that happened after George Floyd last
I
year?
will check
It was
again, but
several
last time I
billion,
checked it,
wasn't it?
it was. There was one point it was projected to be 2 billion. I'm going to double check real quick.
Well, early on, yeah, it was about 3 billion, and then it kind of tapered off.
Oh god! Wow!
Yeah, I think a space shuttle was 1.5 billion.
Holy shoot!
So we could
So-
have gone to the moon and back twice.
We could have put
Yeah.
dogs in
Assholes.
orbit.
No,
Do-do-do-do-do.
We could have put
How
Sora
about-
in orbit.
put the looters in orbit.
Oh,
Use them.
No,
as
but then that just
subjects.
adds to the trash problem up there.
True.
Oops.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
saying when
come off
North
as
Carolina State University won championships and individuals took to the streets and things was damaged. That's what they said. You didn't see a bill like this come out. Said Kerwin Pittman with Emancipate North Carolina. Well, that's probably because the amount of damage that the North Carolina State University fans didn't amount to billions of dollars, and nobody died. Am I missing something here? I mean, this is fundamentally different. But they can racialize anything, right? Sorry, what was
Oh,
the
yeah.
number, Serenity?
They can try.
So in just insurance money, so this is insurance, estimated insurance payouts was between altogether to all of the cities was $1 to $2 billion. Beyond that, they've stopped keeping track.
Well, and that's not all going to North Carolina. Obviously, that's nationwide.
Yeah, that's nation. That's
Still,
to 20 states across the nation.
these people
that
really
got-
don't like law and order, do they?
Well, they like law and order as long as it's for the other people, as long as it's for them, not for the other people. Because like,
For the
wasn't
little
it?
people.
Wasn't it? Who's the one like senator who literally is trying to defund the police, but has hired private security for like $70,000?
Oh,
There
what's
are
her name?
several.
Michigan.
Yeah, I
She's
don't.
one of the big ones. Whitmer.
Not
She's
Whitmer.
been on that. She's been on that bandwagon.
Yeah, Whitmer got caught. It was the other one. Oh, what is her name?
I'm losing track of the difference between which people are claiming we should
Gosh.
have rent forgiveness but are landlords, and which
I know.
ones are claiming we should get rid of the police but have private security paid for by the taxpayers.
Governor
Or
Abbott.
live in gated communities. Corey Bush.
Bush. Yeah.
Yep, her.
Yeah.
The one who came. Nope, I'm gonna
Sorry,
stop.
no, it wasn't
I almost made a comment. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
Well, Corey Bush is one of them, and then there's the gentleman of color. What's his name? Booker? Which I can't remember the guy's
Cory
name.
Booker?
Cory Booker. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
know a
he's
lot-
he actually signed off on some bill or on some thing saying that they wanted to not defund the police because he
And
can
they're
see
all
the writing
pissed
on
at
the
him.
wall as a political creature, and so now his constituents are pissed at him. This
Yeah,
is
and
the
yet-
problem when you deal with radicals. It comes back to bite you in the ass at some point.
At least you have some good ones like DeSantis and Abbott who are actively signing bills to say, no, you cannot defund the police by more than, you can't cut the budget by more than like 5% annually or whatever to sort of prevent that notion of defunding the police all the while being surrounded by private security.
Yeah, and living in gated communities and all that kind of stuff. It's like you kind of don't get to tell me how to do my stuff there, dude.
The only thing I will throw in here is this is partially why militias were a thing back in the day. And like in terms of having like a community-driven effort for kind of a law enforcement as well as military. And
It kind of, sort of, militias, depending on the era and what country, kind of, sort of, yeah. There was not governmental funding. There was local funding, but it often came out of local taxes. Sometimes it didn't. It's like militias are different everywhere, but yeah, it's similar in that sense. It's just, it's like everything. It's not exactly the same, but yeah, no, it's like but yeah, no, it's just Lord. That's all I got. It's like, fuck.
Well, I mean, as a perfect segue to Lord, there was a thing that was going on the Twitter which caught my attention, and I saw this.
Yes.
And so, wow, the AAP is actively deleting entire sections of their website, RE, childhood development, and the importance of facial cues for learning. They are memory holding decades of known and accepted medicine, all, I assume BC is because they have embraced forced masking of our nation's children. Wow. Now, this was a provocative thing that this person, Eric, with the funny spelling, had thrown out there. And I'm like, okay, first of all, is this more propaganda or is this actually true? So I
you immediately put out the call. Somebody tell me what's going on here.
First I wanted to know is, what the hell is AAP? And I thought, is it the American Academy of Pediatrics? And sure enough, got it in one. So started looking into this, and I think I threw up the bat signal to Sora to take a look at what the heck is going on with this thing. So I guess the question is, what the hell? What is the veracity of this claim here, Sora?
So
yes, Sora. All your fault, Sora.
Why are you doing this, Sora?
God.
Yeah, it's on me. American Academy of Pediatrics is run out of my basement.
That's not a good thing to say, Sora.
Canada's America.
You have a white man with free candy written on the side too, or like, are we just gonna go down that route? Anyway, sorry.
So we're looking at something that has as many branches of directions you want to take this. And one of the big things, as you see here, that Harry put on screen, is basically how the AAP is saying that the importance of children aged 12 and under, as they're the ones who have yet to be vaccinated for the COOF, continue wearing masks at all ages, including 2 and under. And the big thing being here is that they've reworded or edited the issue with childhood development and whether or not masks impede communication, understanding, speech, etc. in young children, or infants, we should say, because it really is, it's infant age and up. So this is now this big thing where they've changed their rhetoric and saying that there is no studies to show that having masks or covering the face will impede this development in kids, which is not exactly true. There's quite a few different studies who show the importance of being able to follow facial cues as the child grows, especially from their direct carers, whether that's a parent or a guardian. And now it's the way it was introduced, especially through this Eric guy on Twitter. It's sort of it's taking a tone of conspiracy, which is never good, because instead of having an actual serious discussion about, hey, what's going on? Why are you suddenly editing your peer review, basically the many years of study, just in the last little while? What's going on? It's taken a note of hysteria, which is never good. But I think right now nobody has. It seems like there's no other tone that people are talking about any of these things nowadays. But with either yay or ah.
Nuance seems to be a thing we lost as a side effect of COVID.
Spud Gun says, "Just say what you think. It's bollocks, isn't it?" Yes. If my personal opinion, and this is just Sora's personal opinion from what I've been reading, and again, this is not something that I'm familiar backgrounds, and it's very minimal. But I found a couple of studies, some that are even fairly recent in the last 5 or so years, that go into the importance of communication, whether that is, and what they're saying, the AP are saying, oh, you don't need facial because children learn through tone of voice and through mannerisms as well as through facial change, which are fine, but that is not, it's not enough. You need to recognize, even growing up, you can purchase flashcards, like in many, like for, as children learn language from a young age, you can buy to teach children baby sign language, a lot of flashcards, some of which have facial expressions on them, like emojis, basically, very rudimentarily drawn, pardon me, faces. So you're looking at these kind of stuff that's, it's proven to help with the development. And suddenly they're saying, well, no, a blank face is not going to impede the development, which, and of course now we are talking about what doctors may refer to as cognitively normal. I hate saying that because that sounds terrible, but if you're thinking about children then who have developmental difficulties or other disabilities that even as they age will prevent them from being able to speak with others, this is even worse for them because they really will not have a connection to the people who are trying to help them, their parents, teachers, etc. And that is not what's being discussed.
That's just what we need. More sociopaths on the internet.
No, they're
Look at that
trying
little
to
girl. I
claim-
swear. Look at her eyes. She's shifty.
So they're trying to claim that, you know, their whole website is just sort of being rototilled and that the history eraser machine is going on. But when we tried to track down pages that had disappeared, we really didn't find a whole lot of them. There was this one in the Wayback Machine right here, which you go back and you look as of August, or, you know, as of just a few days ago, this particular, July 11th, this particular page that says make time for FaceTime, FaceTime and emotional health existed on their site. And as of today, it doesn't. The claim that there was like this wholesale eradication of stuff on their site seems to be largely unfounded, which is not to say that they haven't slightly lost their minds a little bit.
No,
Saying that it's completely unimportant is wrong. There is a cognitive problem. I don't know what to call it, a disability. Some people are actually face blind. And there are people who have various types of things on the autism spectrum where they cannot read emotions in people's faces. I know that's not a common thing, but it does happen. So we know there are people out there that lack the ability to interpret people's facial expressions. So
I live with
clearly
one.
it must be important. Yeah.
I live with one. My stepdaughter. She absolutely doesn't get any emotion that's not explicitly conveyed to her from me or from anybody else. This is not a stupid woman. She has a 2-year degree in computer science, and I mean hard computer science and a private pilot license. This is not, she's not, this isn't, you know.
It's not about intelligence, though.
It's not about intelligence
separate.
at all. But it's about her Asperger's. And she just absolutely cannot interpret, gets no emotional cues from your posture, your stance, your facial expression, tone of voice, completely oblivious. All she hears are the words. That's all she perceives.
So on the one hand, we've got people saying that COVID is so dangerous that we need to accept this other thing, basically this loss of this facial interaction with people. One could make that argument, but they're not making that argument. From what I can tell from the site, they're just saying, no, it doesn't matter. It's not important. Let me see if I can get back to this page here.
It's instead of the idea is basically they are trying to alleviate fears that masks will impede like health, like or create health risks, like it's not easy to breathe or anything, like for young kids, for school age kids, etc. And and as you can see here on the screen, that real talk, the AAP's real talk. Freaking annoying. Being around adults wearing masks doesn't delay baby speech or language development. Wearing masks around a baby scares babies. They don't like not being able to see things. Or if it's something that it distorts what they're used to seeing, right?
Yeah. One of the first ways they learn is by viewing.
They mimic as babies. One of the kind of branches when I was reading through some of the early childhood development, infants start mimicking you. Or mimicking, say if it is their mother who's the caretaker, as she is cooing at the baby, a few months in, the baby's starting to is able to focus and actually start trying to understand what they're seeing, right? The eye brain development kicks in. So they're pursing their lips, they try to coo back. They're trying to start smiling back, right? This, you smile, a baby smiles back because it's mimicking the positive reaction, right? And that's how they start interacting with the world. It's the same thing as when their children are very, very little and they see in negative space. So you have these really high contrast, usually black and white cards that you can, if you really want to get into like that baby Einstein thing, where Montessori style teaching, where you really sort of start showing from a young age, this is how a baby can perceive things. It can't see detail yet or multitude of colors, but you can go high contrast. And that's a way to start developing their cognitive abilities from a young age. It's very interesting. And there's all these other studies internationally, right? So we have one here on our list from Italy. I found one, or at least an article from Italy. There's a research paper from England that I'd found the other day, all within the last 10 years, we'll say. So it's fairly recently peer-reviewed, or at the very least from a scientific magazine, pardon me. And for this head, which it should be sort of like the governing body to pediatricians, to come out and say something like this, or just start hiding things, right? Maybe making it difficult to find, is a little bit concerning. We were talking earlier before a stream here about whether or not it's them trying to go into this purity cycle, right? About do we need to, as a way to try to get ahead of this pandemic, should all branches of medicine be pushing? I mean, already with pediatrics, you have all sorts of other vaccinations for young kids. So now, well, before they can get for COVID, what about ensuring they wear masks so they are not exposed to it, or it makes it harder for them to get exposed to it? It's very difficult not to fall into this conspiracy theory brain where it's like, well, they're more worried about this purity thing to show, yes, we're going against all this, and versus like, we don't care for necessarily the health of the kids as long as you're wearing the mask. I don't know. It's without actual in-depth research and going more into this, we're kind of adrift. But yeah.
But you can't you can't enact something that would potentially, because we don't have all the extended data, risk children for what, at least in my mind, is politically driven, as opposed to yeah, if we get a study that shows, okay, we did controlled groups over 10 years and blah, 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 and we show that it is across the board undamaging, then fine. But we can't enact something before we know the facts, especially to children. And I beat this drum all the time. The primary protected class of people have to be children. It's cliche. Children are the future. And we can't take the possibility that we would impair or harm them in some way, especially developmentally in social interactions, if we can help it. You know, obviously there are some people who are they're just born that way, and that's fine. But for the general populace, we can't risk it. We can't risk keep doing these things to kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you just logical fallacy yourself a little bit, though, because
Probably.
I mean, what you're saying comes from the right place. I absolutely agree with you that they're a protected class, and we know why they're a protected class. But your argument was of the form of, we can't risk this if we don't have all the facts. And risk doesn't really work that way all the time, because right now we have some risks that we have some facts for, right? We know that COVID is a risk, and then there's an unknown risk. We don't know the effect to which maybe a 5-year-old in a school being forced to have everybody wear masks is going to be affected by this when they're going to go home to their parents. We don't know what that risk really is. We take risks all the time. Just sending kids to school is a risk. School buses go off cliffs all the time. I mean, these are things. So yeah, we shouldn't take unnecessary risks. Absolutely. And I would like to see more data on this. But they're making definitive statements, unlike us. We're talking about the nuance, you and I. These people are making statements like it doesn't matter at all. And it's like, you don't know that.
That's pretty dangerous.
And that annoys me.
On either side.
I'm tired of being lied to by people who claim to have answers to things they couldn't possibly have answers to.
Sure. I mean, I look at this very similar to, just similar in scope and as a issue for discussion, something like the thalidomide thing. You know, they used to prescribe that to pregnant women to abate the pregnancy nausea, and it turned out that it caused flipper babies. I mean, let's not just jump the hurdle before we look at the facts, because we do know as well as we can right now that among children, especially younger children, there doesn't seem to be too many immediate adverse reactions with contracting something like COVID. That's what we know right now, as far as I understand, as far as I've read. So, you know, let's not just jump the gun and say, okay, well, we have to put these bubbles metaphorically around kids to prevent them from all this stuff, when we don't know what the effects is. And I totally agree with you that either side, we should just maybe take a step back and as people, as human beings, take a step back and go, okay, let's learn the facts first. Because, you know, I mentioned the immense benefits of having social media and the internet. This is one of this hyper reactionary stuff is one of the biggest detriments to humanity from social media, because you have these people left, right, up, down, doesn't really matter, who are just hyper reactionary and then latch onto some sort of notion or idea, put these ideas out that people, oh, well, this must be a trusted source. It's coming from Frontiers in Psychology or the CBC or Fox News or what have you, and we'll immediately jump on that, and who knows?
Well, I will say this, that for a group of volunteers with an afternoon at our disposal, I think we tracked down an awful lot of stuff. It's going to be in the links. You guys can read it for yourselves and decide. I will say this, if you go to the AAP website, they have a search engine there. And if you put in, just try using it and say, like, you know, facial cues, development, childhood development, just run a few searches. It brings up tons and tons of stuff. They have not gone full Akhenaten and sandblasted the name of the naughty pharaoh off of the buildings. It's just so you know, he was a pharaoh that tried to embrace monotheism.
Is that the Ra?
Yeah, and they said, yeah, that's just fine. Yeah, that's great. We're totally on board with this. Pharaoh dies. It's like done.
Okay, bye-bye. Back to normal.
Bye-bye.
And
it's like
just something
never existed.
Just something that Keever said that I want to touch on was there was, I don't know what the validity of this is, so I'm just going to get this out of the way. I do recall seeing a CBC article on it. I didn't validate. I took it with a grain of salt. But there was, another notion as, removed from the development, but how kids were just distracted because the masks were on them in class and they're playing with them and adjusting them and doing all kinds of weird things. So it could be a contributing factor. We didn't really research any of that right now, Keever, for this story, because we were talking about more of trying to get to what scientific articles might be saying and psychological articles might be saying about this stuff first. But there's a lot being said, and it's hard to know what's got the most validity.
Yeah, and we're not experts in epidemiology or early childhood education or any of this sort of stuff. I can say this, I do know a little bit about HVAC systems, and I wouldn't want to say anything against what the CDC or the World Health Organization has said, but I would say that in addition to mask mandates, you might want to look at the codes surrounding ventilation as well. Because if you're going to put people in a room for 5 hours at a time and then recess and then a couple hours later, you really want to make sure that that air is being treated appropriately. And in the case of some of my customers who are trying to set things up so that people can go back to work, and I think the same thing applies to schools, what they're doing is installing filters into the system. They're still recirculating the same air, but they're filtering everything. I don't know if that's good enough, but I think it's kind of good that we're getting away from a lot of the save energy at all costs kind of mentality, because a lot of buildings, it's like, well, you get 1% new air every hour, whether you need it or not. It's like, no, please, somebody just open a window. Well, we can't because none of the windows open. It's like, good God,
Yeah.
I hate being in buildings like that.
Yep.
Gosh, if anything changes because of COVID, open the damn windows.
A quick aside on that, Harry. All the buildings that are being built here now, if you want to live in like a downtown core, not even downtown core now, it's spreading out to other areas, don't have openable windows because they all have internal air.
Right.
Still,
it's supposed to be a sealed system.
It's modern. It's nice. I mean, you don't even get a balcony, so you can at least say, well, I don't have openable windows, but I can at least leave the door to the balcony open. Nope, you don't get that either.
There's probably a comment somewhere about, at least it's not, we don't have to put nets up for people, but that, like, in terms of like
not
China, but I'm not going to go there too much.
You already went there, pal.
I did, I know.
Well,
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, all things considered, we still do have a very good quality of life.
So sorry if that was kind of a weird article. It's not like, aha, we have this smoking gun. It's just, let's look at something that seems to be causing a dust up on the internet and see what we can find out about it. So we investigated and basically figured out, yeah, we kind of get why people are concerned. Yeah, these people are kind of being douche nozzles. But everybody just calm down ever so slightly.
Calm down, take a breath.
Yeah, it took us very little time to figure out that they weren't actually deleting huge sections of their website. I mean, is that a fair statement?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
And Twitter is trash. Sorry.
All right. So there's it also adult mental health is important too. Studyfinds.org. Having someone to talk to improves brain health, may prevent Alzheimer's disease. Yeah, isn't that what we're doing here?
Yes.
Again, I what I've mentioned before, the connectivity of the internet has really helped. There was an article I read many moons ago of volunteers from it was probably the United States to learn things like Portuguese from Brazilian seniors online, and so that the seniors would get a benefit because they're talking to people. And the young people are learning new languages. It was an amazing trade-off. So without any sort of like, I haven't read any medical studies, but I mean, come on. We're a social species. We've come to the point in Western society where we kind of, I don't want to say push aside, but we install them in their own kind of bubbles, our elders. Where a lot of them might not get enough communication with other people that might not be, other elders, to just enjoy the twilight of our lives. I mean, even I did actually read one thing where they were concerned about young people. This is many years ago, being too involved in the internet and not having real FaceTime with actual people, sort of stunting their development. We're talking young people in their teens, 20s, even 30s, not children or old people. But so it does seem like it's probably true.
Well, I can tell you in terms of mental health, when the first lockdown sort of started, it was really strange. Other than my imaginary girlfriend, I really didn't have much exposure to people that and going to the store. And going to the store to go shopping felt like a social outing. It's like, oh my God, there's another human being I can actually talk to. But I was talking to a lot of people online. That's sort of when I got, I was involved with Minions, but I got a lot more involved because I suddenly was next to a computer a lot more than I would have been before. And I think it was probably really good for my mental health. I do recall the pre-COVID world, neighborhood bars. You could go to a neighborhood bar and nurse a light beer for a long time and play darts or whatever. There were outlets for people. It's like, oh, you can't sleep? Go play some darts, grab a light beer. Nobody's going to get mad at you for having one a night and spending 3 hours there, honestly. There were ways that people could sort of interact, and now it's just not nearly as much of it. Or maybe I'm just in the wrong place. I mean,
no, I don't think
Sora went to brunch today. Did you interact with any people?
The server.
The server. Did you guys have a
Bring me my
conversation?
sustenance, slave.
Yeah.
That's what Harry interacts with mostly is surfers.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah.
As
I have
somebody who lives
a client-server relationship with people who feed me food. Oh, no, but it is kind of messed up.
Yeah, I was gonna say I also went to a couple of shops and to a florist, and
Sora.
I'm
Walking amongst
patient zero.
people. How dare you? How dare you?
I tend to be a very social person with just random strangers I encounter. So on a like personal level, it's really weird to me when people who live in my own building, when I say hello or how's it going, or nice to see, these kinds of pleasantries, when people just kind of like either give you the side eye, like, why is this person talking to me, or just hi, very closed off. It's very weird to me.
Well, let me ask
Because
Skep a
like you.
question. This is
That's
probably
possible.
a Skep question. I mean, maybe somebody else here knows about it, but I think Skep might know about this. So we've talked about mental development, and now what we're talking about is mental decline. So a part
I
of
know
the
a lot
brain,
about that.
yeah, a part of the brain that was built up early on in those childhood years, the same discussion we were having. We're now talking about the tail end of that. What happens if you stop stimulating an already developed brain? Would lack of communication cause an Alzheimer's-like effect? Because we're not just talking about speech and function here. In the
I don't
case
think
of this
that would be
particular
the
article,
most-
it's Alzheimer's.
No, I don't think that would be the most immediate function that would happen. Most immediate thing that would happen to someone with an active, developed mind who was accustomed to a rich degree of communication would depression would set in. And then you would see mental decline, like on a substantial scale. That's what I think.
I agree.
That is not a medical opinion. That is just my own opinion. I base it on nothing more than anecdotal things I've observed over my life. But I've seen people, go from having an important job where they're dealing with a lot of people, and it makes you feel good to have people rely on you. And suddenly, you're not only not getting those strokes, those ego strokes, from providing services that people need and getting the respect and admiration, all the things that make you feel good about yourself. All of a sudden, not only is that gone, everything's gone. It's why people die 2 years after they retire. I really think that's part of it. I think
I
part
think
of it's
that's part of it,
description,
too.
but I'm just guessing. I like I say, I don't have any data to back that up.
Well,
I totally
okay.
agree from my own personal experiences as well. Yeah, that seems to be a thing.
So if you are basically alone, not having a lot of communication, I can imagine that there are certain parts of memory associated with language that may not be exercised in the same way as they were before.
I'm sorry, what were you talking
Now,
about?
if we're talking about lack of human interaction, human communication, could it contribute to something like Alzheimer's? I think the act of talking to somebody requires a certain amount of sort of digging into the memory banks. A
Well,
lot of communication does the Dharma and Jalad at Tanagra. So
Sure.
if you stop communicating, there are going to be certain types of mental actions which no longer take place with the same frequency. I'm just trying to think, is there some mechanism by which this makes any sense, this assertion?
That's the $64 question. And
Yeah.
it's hard to understand precisely what's going on in different parts of your brain and how they interact. And it's also hard to understand what the effect of, you know, having a substantially fewer number of neurons firing that are accustomed to firing, and you know what that is. You know, people who are accustomed to a fast-paced work environment, and then they go to a slow-paced home environment. I do they have fewer thoughts, or are the thoughts just different? That's what I can't. You know, I have intuitive feelings that I suspect they have fewer thoughts, but that might not always be true. It might be very hard to quantify. How do you measure that?
Be.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm not sure you can.
I think you strap a PET scanner to somebody and
Yeah,
the head PET scanner. Oh, I
But-
was thinking
yes.
earlier of the Biden discussion about his mental decline. I think what they need to do is get some kind of gel that's sort of like what we put on the CPU heat sinks, and then they need to make a special hat with some cooling fans and some radiators on there, so that
Harry.
when the Algernon juice pushes him, overclocks his brain,
Sure.
it keeps things from getting too warm.
What does he have a thermal shutdown also?
He does. He's basically he's
Can't we just give him some
brains.
meth? But yeah,
Well, I mean,
any sort of function that we see in the body, it can atrophy just like anything else. As you know, as far as we understand, because like you said, Skep, it's something we still don't know a lot about. We know very little, but it seems like anything else, like your muscles, like your respiratory system, it can atrophy if it doesn't get use. And when it goes from a certain level and dips, there might be some level of cumulative atrophy going on.
Well, you know, the link to the Minions Discord is in the show description. So if you're listening to this, or you know somebody who's listening to this, you don't have to go to the Minions Discord and start talking to people. You know, there's voice chat there as well. There are lots of things out there like that. There's no reason for anybody, even if they're stuck at home, not to have a human connection and communicate with people. I think it's in terms of sort of mental elasticity, it is you still have some of it even as you're older. So you shouldn't just be keeping the old connections firing and working. You need to keep trying to form new connections in the brain. I don't think being a static being is good for anybody. I think it just leads to degradation.
Harry, not to personalize this, but maybe we could have a bit of fun with this. I found out today that I'm being pressed into service to homeschool 1 and maybe 2 children, the youngest of whom is 11, and I was asked by their mother to get him through high school. So we have a chance to do at least a longitudinal study on me. It's only one data point, only one data subject, but we can see how badly I decline over the years here.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
we
so-
need
so
the
the
sorry, go
problem
ahead.
is there's no control.
Well, yeah, that's why I was
Yeah.
going to say we need the quantum galaxy reality thing to kick in. So we need to
Yeah.
follow the Skep in this universe that
Right,
takes that
exactly.
path, and then we
Right.
need to keep an eye on a Skep in the other universe who didn't take the path, and then compare the two Skeps. Probably with some sort of combat situation. That's how we'll evaluate which Skep is more successful.
I wanted to keep it realistic.
Well, I mean, that ship has sailed.
We'll get Dr. Strange on it.
So,
You gotta have a
yeah,
little
I
fun here.
honestly, as far as Alzheimer's goes, my understanding is I think most people are still thinking it's an inflammatory problem as much as anything else, or some sort of weird autoimmune thing. And the best thing you can do, as far as I know, is to keep stimulating your brain, eating a Mediterranean diet, low in inflammation factors, and for God's sakes, don't have horrible sleep hygiene and take Lunesta and Ambien and stuff like that, because all of this stuff you put in your body, like Functional said, you don't really know long term on a lot of these things. I don't know
Take
if they've done too
lecithin.
many studies. Yeah, where you've had people taking Ambien for 30 years to get to sleep, while the TV's still on, and
Yeah,
they're
the
dialing up QVC.
The only thing I know for sure is it's not lupus.
I used to get some amazing phone calls from my grandmother on Ambien, where one time she called me up.
Oh,
She called me up. I think it was Lunesta. She called it her butterfly pill, and she would the poor
Oh.
thing, and she would call me up and act like she was about 6 years old and say that she really wanted a puppy, and would I get her a puppy? And it wasn't really her; it was like 6-year-old her in a dream state talking to me. And this was years.
Sure, she wasn't
before-
taking psilocybin mushroom.
I don't know what she was having
Maybe
a
LSD.
great time. And I talked to her the next day, and she'd have no idea that she called me under the influence of these sleeping pills. I'm like, what the hell?
They're pretty
Anyway.
powerful stuff.
Yeah, I don't.
Tried them
other
once,
than a
hated
little
them.
melatonin, I don't touch.
Yeah.
I don't touch most stuff that crosses the brain barrier if I can avoid it. Anyway, on to something. I don't know. Is this fun? Is it? How do we characterize
space?
this?
Oh, I
It's
got some hot
funny.
It's
That's
it's not surprising, I guess.
Yeah.
So I assume everybody's heard about this, but does everybody know why this is happening?
Is it? Aren't there like a payment?
The payment processors are putting pressure on OnlyFans to ban explicit pornography. So
Aren't they
just
like?
as
And then
for-
they're wrapping it around also that there's a lot of very questionable content. So they had so it's not about the payment processors. It's just there's some things that could be extremely illegal on here, and we have to get rid of that too. Even though
that
in
seems to
some
be
places,
a cover story from
Yeah.
what I've read so far. It seems to be just all smoke and mirrors because
I was listening to a video and someone was saying that there was a former mod come out and say that they got in trouble for over modding, basically doing their job
yeah.
on OnlyFans.
But that's good. I mean, I'd rather them, be
Yeah,
a
but they
little
got
bit
in trouble
overly
by
cautious
OnlyFans
because the
for
girl
doing that,
looks
so-
like she's not of age, but actually
Yeah.
is like 21. And then they can go back and go, okay, sorry, we'll give you back your account and lock it or whatever. Then accidentally, she looks 21, but she's actually 15. Like I'd rather err on the side of caution with these kinds of things. But I think it's really a shame because it's produced quite a bit of income. Whether or not you agree with the whole simping issue or whatever, it's generated quite a bit of income, especially when we had these downtimes. And at the end of the day, I still believe your body, your choice. You want to sell pictures of your tits and ass online? Have at it, Haas. More power to you.
And just hope you've done two things. One, you have saved some of that income. So you have, a rainy day fund, which you're going to need after October 1st.
You're
And
not Hassan
two-
Nabi and buying a $3 million house.
And two, you've thought about the ramifications. Like, wasn't there a teacher who's given up her teaching to become, or some housewives have decided to do this. Like the ramifications of now that you've done this, your image and name potentially are out on it already on the internet. Now that you're going to need to find a different job, are you now just stuck in adult work? Or are you going to?
There's other avenues.
You
There's
know,
other avenues where they can put this stuff through. You know, like big sites like Pornhub have a premium paid service that can be membership or piecemeal. Like you really like this model you found on Instagram or whatever, because that's where these people try to find eventually, you know, find these people and want to see more. Don't ask how I know this. I just do.
Well,
I don't buy this stuff. I find it interesting, so I research it. And the trend is that yes, people will find models on like Instagram or whatever, and they want to see more. So these predominantly men will go on to sites like OnlyFans and unlock their premium content. And in actuality, a lot of these models, the mass majority of them don't do full nude or full pornography. Very few of them actually do, like the tiniest
They'll be just like,
minority do actual full pornography through OnlyFans.
well, like on
a larger
Instagram.
margin, but small margin, do full nudity. The rest do what you would just consider the lewd type content.
Yeah, you're not allowed. It's the whole free the nipple movement on Instagram. You can't show that anymore. So if you want to do like even lacy underwear stuff where it's without padding, so you can see everything, you can't really have that on Instagram anymore. You'll lose your account. So you move that over, as you mentioned, to a site like OnlyFans. But that's the thing; those are going to still be kept. Those people have even like nudes without much explicitity on it can still remain. So if you're only doing like photo shoots and stuff, those people will still have a platform. It's just anyone who is really into, like, I don't know, hardcore stuff, I guess, that's within their list of stuff, they are no longer welcomed. So they either change their content or go to a different site. And I don't know what we feel about the quartering, yay or nay. Sometimes he has good videos, but he did one recently about breaking down with this OnlyFans thing. I think it was the quartering. I don't know if it may have been somebody else, but basically talking
Well, he's
about
one of them. Yeah.
How like there's other sites. However, oh no, I think it's a Gundam. He went into it anyway about how there's other. Yeah, it's a Gundam, because he was saying there's certain sites who some of the more prominent, I get, OnlyFans creators are saying, well, we don't want to go anywhere because they're going to take more of our money, because there are other sites, but their cut is like 30% instead of, I think it's like 20% that OnlyFans taking currently. Okay.
Yeah, an article I read
Versus
today said 20%.
45 from YouTube or something. And so all of these things, okay, well, that means you do have other sites. You can retain your audience.
Do you know what has been the biggest increase for relatively similar content? Obviously, they can't do full nudity, but it's been Twitch. Most of these women who do, predominantly women, who do the type of lewd content on OnlyFans, and yeah, sometimes nude and whatever, are new big exploding Twitch stars who, you know, sit in a rubber pool or do whatever kinds of weird stuff that they do these days. But they're making, that has been a monumental increase into the revenue generation of this type of content. So to say that this is a huge deal, only really for the shareholders at OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Everybody else will probably get a bigger slice, or that, you know, women, mostly women, will tone down their content so they can still do OnlyFans, or they'll find all their alternatives.
Well, I have several
if you
comments
can find
that I
that,
want to make about this.
If you can find that it's a Gundam video or whoever it was,
I did.
DM me
It's
later.
What's in the chat for YouTube? I found it.
Great,
Yeah.
thanks.
That's the one. Thank you.
I did have one thought on this as well.
THOT. No, sorry.
Well, I was actually I was watching a video done. Who is the content creator? It's done by Attention Span Labs, and this is actually in regards to what's going on in the Warhammer world right now. But he kind of pointed out something that I thought was kind of a good point to make in general, and that is the term fan, of course, is for fanatic. And he said that, when you're being referred to as a fan, and it's kind of more of a derogatory. Well, it's more of a derogatory term compared to a customer or something like that, and it's one of those things where, so it's one of those things where I have mixed feelings about this too, because like when talking about the whole concept of like simping and things like that, it's like on one hand I don't really care what people do with their money realistically. On the other hand, I've seen threads where people have literally spent like tens of thousands of dollars on people, and I mean, yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, they were idiots, but it's one of those things where it's like I don't know, I don't necessarily want to regulate a market, but maybe there ought to be some kind of like safeguards put in place, either by like how many donations can be put in or how large of a donation can be put in. I don't know. It's just one of those things where.
Okay,
yeah.
You've added more things to the list of things that I'm going to say.
Okay, let me add to the list before you do something.
Oh
So-
yeah, because it's turning into quite the rant. Go ahead.
Okay.
Don't worry, Harry. We're going to keep you staved off from Alzheimer's, so you should remember this stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
So part
My
of
hip just
what's
broke from
being
sadness.
shown is like like everyone said, the financial stuff. Well,
Sorry.
you're fine. MasterCard has changed its guidelines. MasterCard has stated that because they're the ones that are kind of pushing the October 15th kind of thing. Basically, the banks that connect merchants to our network, they need to certify that the seller of adult content has effective controls in place to monitor, block, and where necessary, take down all illegal content. MasterCard was also the people who pulled from Pornhub for a while because Pornhub got found out. Well, and it necessarily wasn't Pornhub's fault, but it kind of was. There was a lot of underage content on there that got a lot of videos pulled down. MasterCard is putting these rules in effect because of that. So basically, the controls are document age and identity verification for all people depicted and those uploading the content review process prior to publication, complaint resolution process that addresses illegal or non-consensual content within 7 business days, an appeals process allowing for any person depicted to request their content be removed. That is what MasterCard did. OnlyFans, instead of putting these controls in effect, is just saying no porn.
Yeah.
So basically, OnlyFans is they're overcompensating to make sure they don't get caught. The way Pornhub did, because this is the stuff that even Pornhub has to abide by now. So it is the financial pushing, and I agree people should be allowed to do with their bodies what they do, but there is underage content on OnlyFans that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It gets taken down, but it doesn't get caught that quickly because, Pornhub, a lot of those videos were up for years before finally push happened, or those girls or people, because it happens to men too, contrary to what a lot of people think. People were coerced. They were underage. They weren't told what was going on. So that's where this is coming from. It's not as we're going to disagree on that one, Assassin. So it's one of those, that's their stipulation, is that if you're going to do adult content, you have to be able to prove everybody's age. You have to prove everybody who's in it. You have to prove they all consent. If one of them states they don't consent, you have to be able to pull it down. That's basically the big things, which to me, I don't run one of these platforms, so I would think that was in the making of it anyway, but apparently not. Because I would want to make sure that children aren't getting trafficked. I would want to make sure that people aren't being forced to do something, because there's the difference between non-consensual play and actual non-consensual. So to me, it's not going to hurt the people who are consenting, but OnlyFans is overcompensating because of a rule that's getting passed down by somebody else, which is most likely going to be followed by other credit card companies. Sorry, Harry. Now go.
No. I mean, there's a bunch so there's the libertarian part of this, which is, I mean, there certainly are people out there that are very sex negative, right? And
Yes.
you can make an informed argument as to why that might be a good idea. Aiden Paladin did a very good video about the effects of pornography on the brain.
Yeah.
Which is not necessary, which does not run into conflict with the idea that I'm in favor of people's personal liberties to eat cheeseburgers and fatty food and, drink drawn butter. I don't care. It's none of my business. But in terms of like the argument of what it does to the brain, that's something that we actually have pretty good data on. Okay, setting that aside. So there are people who are sex negative for various reasons, either because they're concern trolls or because they're just prudes of a different stripe. They're not moral majority ones. They're just sort of sex negative feminist types. Yeah. Now, the oldest profession is not going to go anywhere. As opposed to people who choose to do this type of work. I'm not talking about people who are forced into this type of work, but people who choose to do this type of work because they feel it's the best option for them. I would much rather OnlyFans take a 20% cut than them have to deal with sleazy porn producers or pimps or whatever other traditional middleman used to get in there.
Agreed.
So, I mean, at least these people are exploiting themselves, and they're the ones that are primarily benefiting from the exploitation, right?
Well, they're in control of they're in air quotes in control of the exploitation, even though technically if they're in control, they're not exploiting. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So then there's the question of the banks. Now, if the bank, if somebody's creating this type of content and they don't have sufficient controls to keep underage material, i.e. illegal content, from being published, does the credit card company, if they were to say nothing, become an accessory to that crime? And if not, why not?
I mean, I think that's the reason why they're doing this. I think that's the reason why they did it with Pornhub. I think, I'm looking it up now, but I think someone tried to go after them for being an accessory or something like that.
Well, this is where the mind reading kicks in, because we don't know, given what's happened with Sleeping Giants in the past, we don't know if it's a sex-negative feminist thing who's using CP as a pretext, or whether there really was a CP problem. Because I would assume on these sites that these people have to go through some sort of verification because money is changing hands. I mean, I don't think that they didn't do background checks on these people because they have a financial relationship, right? Where they're funneling money through and processing credit cards and then making payments to these people. So are they claiming that people other than the artist who was part of the OnlyFans, that they were showing content of unrelated parties that was illegal? I mean, I'm trying to understand what exactly is the objection from the charge card companies. Or are they claiming that the artists themselves were underage and that the verification from OnlyFans wasn't adequate?
Well, here's the thing. Once again, this goes back to Pornhub. When 30 women filed a lawsuit against Pornhub for not giving consent, they also went after Visa.
Are we talking about like revenge porn or something?
Well, it was because...
Well, that would be considered non-consensual.
Right, because those people need to rot in hell.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, in their lawsuit, they named Visa also as being a part of it. Because they went after Visa, which is...
But I personally would look at that the same way Pete just mentioned in chat. You don't blame the phone company when, criminal A talks to criminal B to plan the heist or whatever. So I would hope that we would look at it the same way in a payment processor because, at the end of the day, they're just moving ones and zeros from one location to another.
Agreed. But the thing is that's the reason why MasterCard is doing this. Because they're trying to get ahead of it. So this way, if this stuff does get revealed, because let's face facts, if it's an explicit site, there's underage people.
Wasn't Visa found non-culpable?
That's what I'm double checking because I'm reading through the article.
Pretty sure they were.
Well, it was updated 2 days ago. That's the reason why I'm trying to.
Sure. No, good to have the facts.
But that's the reason why.
I mean, I don't mean to go all Tim Pool on this about it being
Yeah.
complicated, but I do feel like a lot of
But
people.
it's complicated.
Well, it is complicated because we really
Yeah, I
honestly
agree with
don't know what the. I mean, unless somebody's done the due diligence of subscribing to all of these channels and gathering statistics, I don't know. I mean, but
Yeah.
I do think just the idea that there needs to be some kind of reform in terms of how the credit card companies function in these matters, because I don't think people should be losing access to financial services because of pressure from interest groups.
Yeah.
It's terrible, and we've talked about this before. On the
Especially
other hand,
in. Sorry.
no, on the other hand, I can totally see where MasterCard would not want their name associated in any way, shape, or form with the illegal distribution of this type of material.
Of course,
Underage
who
stuff.
would?
So, I know I'm Tim Pooling this pretty hard, but I really don't feel like I know any more than when I started.
I was just going to say, like, especially in the modern digital age where, like I said, the ones and zeros are just transferred by these companies and your options are very limited for these types of services to transfer your ones and zeros across.
Well,
Just to add another layer of complication.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you there.
No,
I
I
think
was
it was V. Monroe who, about a year or two ago, did a thing on somebody who ran an adult payment processor, actually had them on for like an hour and a half. And they talked about the mechanics of what that business looks like. And obviously it is, as you said, there are people out there that will do it. It just costs more money. So worst case scenario, if you'd think that if OnlyFans wanted to keep their business, they would clean up their act because going to jail sucks. And they would just change, instead of caving into the credit card processors, they would just change to something more expensive and say, effective on such and such a date, we're going to be taking a bigger cut to cover our additional expenses. And the world would go on as it is. I don't understand quite well why OnlyFans is caving quite so easily. That's the
Probably
thing that
to try to get
confuses
some
me.
system into place where they have to now get a valid photo ID, but not just get it, because that's easy. You know, anybody could take a picture with their phone or whatnot and send it to them, but they need some way to be able to connect with the proper authorities to vet those IDs to make sure that they're valid or whatnot, so that people aren't using fake IDs.
Complicated. This is not
No, but
complicated.
they probably have to set something like that up.
No,
to
you use
be able to cover
the N-word. You use the N-word. That N-word is notary. It's not complicated to get a form that you download, you fill it out, you sign it. A notary looks at the thing, they stamp it, and
that
then
area,
they send
but
it
they
in.
need OnlyFans needs some way to then deal with these.
No, I know. I'm just saying that as a technical problem goes, this is a problem that we've known how to solve for quite some time.
Yeah.
How long have notaries been around, Skep?
Oh, long time. I have no idea.
Since aughts,
It's like
even
it's like a
before
long
I
time.
was born.
It goes way back to
Notaries
DC times.
until
Old
late
tech for the
on.
win.
Then
Notaries
money
came-
changers with the funny noses.
Notaries were not introduced into England until later. in the 1320s.
of them.
Shush you. It looks like mostly in Europe, it was not until about the 12th or 13th century.
Well-
It hit
well-
Italy first, but they're older than that. But it was
Okay.
just they became a bigger thing in Europe.
There was I do know this much about it. There was a shift in function from that function used to be done by what were called lawyers back in the day. And then you're talking about in the 11, 12, and 1300s, like Chaucer's time. Chaucer makes reference to lawyers.
Uh-huh.
And
Sorry, I'm remembering Canterbury Tales. Sorry.
So Chaucer lawyers?
oh, yeah, that's all I didn't want to go on and on.
Yeah, it's yeah. So in terms of this goes, I can imagine. I mean, I'm just thinking about somebody who could create this thing if I had no standards. Clearly, you would have people basically prove their identity via one of the means that's legally acceptable, right? That's not complicated. Take that as a given. Then you need some sort of system that makes sure that people who are not the registered people with OnlyFans appear in these videos, meaning that you have to also register anybody else who shows up in these videos who isn't the person they have the relationship with. And then you just tell the MasterCard to go pound salt and pay 30% instead of 20%. But for some reason, they feel guilty and they're just sort of caving, which makes me almost wonder if there was a problem and they're worried about their legal liability, and this is on some level an act of contrition.
Probably.
I think, because with any explicit site, there's going to be people that are maybe not necessarily underage, but there's going to be people who are not fully consenting. There may be revenge porn on there. Who knows?
Yeah. And this is why we have jails. Yes. Anyway, that was salty. We have
That's
hit
what she
the
said.
2-hour mark. We have 2 small little science things, which I think they're just little. Shall we go ahead with these? Is everybody
Science.
still awake?
Sure.
So we did start a
Science.
little late, so
Okay. Yeah, that was on me.
Yeah,
We
here
had
it
to have a last-minute powwow. Okay.
that was
Oh,
a little
Harry.
late. Sorry.
Perseverance rover spots tiny Mars moon.
Yay.
And
It's
the
not.
video-
It's like you'll miss it if you blink, but
No, it's right there.
It
It's the
is.
shiny
I know, but
thing.
it's
Oh, look at
really
it.
pretty.
Yay!
See, look.
I have some things to say about the moon.
Please.
Deimos is the smaller of the 2 moons, and it's also farther away. It's actually about half the size of Phobos. And by the way, Deimos means dread or terror, and Phobos means fear. And that they orbit Mars, and in the Greek mythology, they actually accompanied Mars, or Ares, actually in Greek. It was Latinized to Mars into battle. But the deal is, so that's what they're named for. But anyway, Deimos that you're looking at, that is a little triangle. It looks like a triangle. If you look at close-up astronomy of Deimos, I've been fascinated by the moons of Mars for years. I could talk for a long time, and I promise I'll be brief. But the more interesting one, the one I'd really like to see, is Phobos.
Mm-hmm.
Phobos is, because it's considerably larger. I mean, it's almost twice the size of Deimos. It's also half the altitude. And so Phobos is going to look like about 1/5 the size of our moon. And you'd really be able to see, you'd actually be able to see some detail on the surface just with the naked eye from the surface of Mars. That's the one that I would like to see.
That would be awesome.
Carl Sagan, Carl Sagan's license plate, I believe, was Phobos. That
I
was
think
his
I remember
personalized
that.
license
I
plate.
believe that's correct, Harry. I believe I
Yeah.
remember that too.
Actually, I have something to say about Carl Sagan next week if we get back to the article that got postponed. I'm chomping at the bit to say what I want to say. But yeah, this is actually incredibly cool. The new rovers that we have, like Perseverance, the optics that they have are really quite good. If you take your camera phone and go outside and try to take a picture of the moon, you'll discover that it doesn't work particularly well. And the reasons why are actually kind of interesting. It usually appears much smaller in photos than you would think it would. No, they actually have pretty good optics on there. It's like if you're going to send these rovers, you might as well send something with state-of-the-art imaging. And these are just so much better than they used to be in terms of the optical quality. So the fact that they can look up and get a picture even like this of such a small object like Deimos is pretty impressive.
One thing to bear in mind, Harry, is that you're looking at an object. You know, we think of the moon, that's almost 300,000 miles away from Earth most of the time. These things are about 1/100th as far away. They're about like between 8 and 15,000 miles away from the surface of Mars. And Deimos, which is farther away, is actually it's outside your dead zone, And so its orbit is actually being boosted, like our moon is, by the gravitational attraction of other objects in the solar system. Phobos, on the other hand, is headed for Mars, and it's either going to be torn apart into a ring to become, and that will happen, they think, in about 50 million years. So some of us will probably be alive to see that. I certainly will.
Well, you lasted the first 50 million.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
Listen to Godhood at that point.
So my point is that these things are amazingly close to the surface of Mars.
Mm-hmm.
I would just love to see the motion. I just think you'd be able to observe the motion through the sky. I know you would.
I should have fired
They
up
go
Starry
around
Night for
once
this.
every 30 hours, roughly. That's Dio's orbital period. I used to know Phobos, and I can't remember. I think it's even shorter.
What was Mars' daily cycle? 18 hours? Ish. Sorry.
Well, I really
It's
should.
28 hours or something like that. I forgot what it was, but
24
If I have
hours,
time,
37
Oh, it is
minutes.
about the same. Yeah.
This week, I will make a try to capture an animation or fire up something in one of my pieces of software, since I'm an amateur astronomer, and see if I can get a representation of what Skep is talking about. But this is really, really cool stuff. Planetary science is really one of my favorite things. If you're trying to make an argument for why do we study things in space, studying our own sun and studying the planets that we have detailed measurements on is by far the thing that you can most easily justify.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just an intellectual exercise. I mean, because we've learned an awful lot about the solar system and the Earth by looking at other planets.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, unfortunately for people who think that climate science is just all stupid, a lot of the models that got people worked up about climate change came from observations of Venus, because we were trying to figure out why in the hell is this thing so hot? But of course, the difference between Venus and the Earth is actually pretty drastic, and that is a conversation for another time. Now, this is a thing that's in space.com. NASA awards $500,000 to develop moon mining tech. This is cool because they're doing more of the commercialization of space that's near the Earth. This is actually fairly common for NASA to do this type of stuff. They have a long history, well, I mean, as long a history as NASA's been around, of giving money to private industry to prototype things like this. This is the kind of research they do quite a bit of, because if you hire NASA people to do this, you have to get civil servants and contractors and fund them. You wouldn't even get 3 FTEs out of NASA having people try to do this in-house.
Just what I was thinking.
Whereas if you get some small, hungry company with some bright people who are doing this on the side with a bunch of other projects, all of the loaded costs for maintaining that staff don't exist. This is a really good deal for NASA, and it's a really good deal for the private industry that do this.
Exactly right. That's why private industry is better than government leading development of something like this. It's such a no-brainer. Yeah.
Well, this is why a lot of these challenges that people will put up are good. So it's the break the lunar ice challenge. Space miners may use rockets to harvest the moon's water ice. I think we're going to be seeing, in addition to a lot of the smaller countries that are trying to make a name for themselves by landing things on the moon, and India put a space probe around Mars not that long ago, which got pictures of those moons as well. And India's reason for doing this wasn't to break new scientific frontiers. It was mostly to showcase their ability to manage complicated projects.
Unlike West Taiwan.
If you read through all of the BS in the press releases, what they were doing was they were showing that they could manage complicated things like the big sort of first world countries, and they did a perfectly credible job. But I think the commercialization of space at some point is going to become more of a thing. And these little bits of technology that we're working out in terms of how to extract water from the atmosphere, how to recycle atmosphere. What?
Harry, one of these guys is going to bring back a cliff full of diamond. And it's going to really change things.
Yeah.
No, it's going to drop
Especially
the
when we
price
get
of
out
diamonds
into
way
the-
down.
Yeah. Especially when we get out into the belt.
I
The
just
asteroid
want,
belt of the solar system that has we know with a little bit, we don't know where, but we theorize with a great level of certainty that there's going to be a lot of precious metals there. Gold and silver, titanium, these kinds of things.
One of the things that we can't do is we can't see into the Oort cloud very well. It's really hard to tell what's out there. But if we go out there, we'll be in a position to do spectrographic analysis on all the zillions, and the zillion is just about the right word.
Yeah.
Of rock
Spatial
bodies. Yeah, the large rocks that are out there, and there's liable to be some pretty good shit out there.
Yeah.
there's gold up in them there belts.
And
I don't know.
That there are cloud.
And then
You know,
maybe there'll be a diamond a dozen.
I just want
Really-
an FTL drive. That's all I want.
Find geodes and
I got your joke, Geodes.
Yeah, I got it
I got
too.
your joke.
just
Skep's a lot nicer than we are. We don't.
our own gut feel, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So, in terms of FTL
I'll be here every
drives,
Saturday.
do any of you are you familiar with the Dust channel on YouTube, Serenity?
No, I am not.
Okay, so
I
it's
am.
all science. It's all like sci-fi short films. It's called Dust,
Ah,
and there is a short film in there called FTL, which is about 12 minutes long and well worth a look. Well worth a look. I think you might actually enjoy it.
I think FTL's on YouTube also.
Probably, but these
Yeah.
look cool though.
No, I'm talking about the Dust channel on YouTube. It's actually a YouTube thing. Yeah.
Oh,
So there's
okay,
a
okay.
video
That's
that
probably
they
where I
made.
saw it.
Yeah,
it
it's
is-
pretty
that is
damn good,
exactly
isn't
where
it?
I saw it. Yes, it is.
It's like watching Contact, but way shorter and less annoying because there's no talking to your dead dad on the beach.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey! I love Contact. You shut your mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't want to think about Arecibo right now because it'll make me sad. Okay, so we are actually done. We have made it all the way to
Yay.
2 hours and 13 minutes.
Go home.
Does anybody have any final thoughts, or do we want to just wrap this up?
That was
We
Sora's
are-
That
final
was
thought.
mine.
Okay,
We are star stuff.
we are Star Stuff. I'm going to go ahead and close
Aw,
this thing down
pretty.
then. Thank you for joining us tonight. I've been your host, The Harry Channel. And yeah, do check us out on the Minions Discord. We're actually really nice people. And if you're not on our Discord, you should definitely do that. No
if you
laughing
don't-
at that.
And
Harry
if you don't
doesn't
want to
speak for
talk,
me.
type.
Yeah.
You don't have to speak out loud. You can just message and chat.
I mean, we will think less of you. No, we won't. We won't do that. Absolutely.
I will.
And with that, the Zoom is
Inclusive,
closed.
and
Good
here
night.
you go.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.